Thank you very much. Ms. Garnett, you authored a opinion piece with another individual about whistleblowers, and I think in New York law, compelling people to come forward. Is that correct?
That's correct, Senator.
In the first paragraph, you says, this is in 2019, I think, over the past few weeks, the country has been riveted by the news of a whistleblower within the intelligence community who filed a formal complaint alleging wrongdoing by President Trump. In turn, we have watched the whistleblower defamed by the president, his allies, even accused of treason, despite his having meticulously followed the lawful process to report possible criminal conduct. This took remarkable courage. There was no legal obligation to report it. There were serious risks to career, reputation, even personal safety for doing so. Was that your view of Mr. Vitterman?
Yes, Senator, I stand by what I wrote in that op-ed.
Are you aware that whistleblowers have come forward from the IRS challenging the impartiality of the Hunter Biden investigation?
Yes, I've read about that in the newspaper.
Okay. So would your kind words extend to them?
Yes, I think, Senator, as I've said repeatedly when I was Commissioner of the New York City Department of Investigation, that having lawful channels for government employees to come forward to report what they believe is wrongful, fraudulent, corrupt conduct is vitally important to honest government. And I would extend that view to any whistleblower, yes.
Ms. Hall, you worked with Mr. Weiss, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
What time periods did you work for him?
I was hired in that office by former United States Attorney Oberle in 2011. Mr. Weiss was in the office in a career position at that time, and I left the office in 2019 when I took the job as a United States magistrate judge.
In 2019, 2018, were you aware of the investigation of Hunter Biden by Mr. Weiss?
Sitting here today, I can't remember if I knew that there was an investigation at that time. I've since learned in the news that the investigation originated while I was still at the office, but I had no involvement in that investigation while I was at the office.
Was there any chatter in the office about this investigation at all?
Not that I recall, Senator.
Okay, so you know nothing about it?
I know nothing about this investigation.
Are you aware of recent reports that on October the 7th, 2022, two whistleblowers claimed to have been in attendance at a meeting with Mr. Weiss where he indicated that the decision of how to charge and where to charge Hunter Biden was not his. It was other people had made that decision.
I am aware from reading the newspaper that there are whistleblowers that have come forward.
Given what you know about Mr. Weiss, how does that strike you?
I appreciate the question, Senator. The Code of Conduct for United States federal judges prohibits me from commenting on any pending case pending before any court, and so I don't feel that it'd be appropriate for me to comment on anything regarding a pending case. I can tell you that I have no involvement in that case.
Well, Ms. Garnett, based on your view of whistleblowers, all of us should take these allegations seriously. Do you agree?
Yes, Senator. I would say in my experience as almost 2 decades as a prosecutor and investigator that my own approach would not to be to take the word of any whistleblower, informant, cooperating witness at face value and look for corroboration. But I definitely, as I said in my previous answer.
And if you found corroboration, what does that mean to you?
I'm sorry, Senator?
If you found corroboration of what they said, what does that mean to you?
Well, I think that any investigator or prosecutor would view corroboration as important to assessing the credibility of witnesses.
Ms. Hall, are you aware that one of the whistleblowers actually sent an email about the meeting to other people in real time, identifying the substance of the allegation on the same day it was made?
I was not aware of that, Senator.
Ms. Garnett, would you consider that corroboration?
I don't know the facts of this case, Senator, but I would, in my experience as a prosecutor, contemporaneous statements are important in assessing witnesses' credibility, yes.
Thank you. As Mahalachik, is that right?
Mahalchik, yes, Senator.
Thank you. So you were a magistrate judge. The Spainer case, did I say that, Graham Spainer?
Yes.
He was the former president of Penn State. He was convicted by state court, and you granted a habeas petition. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes, Senator. He petitioned the court to seeking his conviction to be set aside and a new trial granted due to a jury instruction that was given by the state court, and that was his request.
And you granted that request?
After careful review of the law related to that habeas petition and the arguments made by the parties, I determined that the jury instruction that was given by the state court was in violation of the petitioner's due process, yes.
Did the Third Circuit overrule your decision?
Yes, they did.
How many times have you been overruled by higher courts?
In my decade on the bench, Senator, I have issued over 1,500 written opinions and memorandum decisions and reports and recommendations in civil matters, and issued.
Are all of those reviewed by higher courts?
And then, in addition to that, the over 1,000 criminal orders and decisions on release and detention, and they are all subject to review by either the district court or
were they reviewed?
They were not all reviewed because the parties didn't always seek review of them. And
so I've been told that you've been reversed 31 times. Does that sound about right?
That sounds about right. Of those 31, I believe at least 2/3 of them were only in part.
Yeah. So you were criticized by the court for not understanding the 11th Amendment applied to cities. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, there are not many of us here, so I'll just try to wrap it up. The 11th Amendment applied to cities, not just states. Do you remember that case?
I don't know specifically which case you're referring to, Senator.
Okay. Do you remember a case where the court criticized you for confusing sovereign immunity and qualified immunity, the Potter City case?
I don't remember that specific case either, Senator.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks to each of you for being here and for your willingness to serve. Ms. Michalczyk, I'd like to start with you, if that's all right. I want to talk about Lochner versus New York for a moment. Was that case correctly decided? And I'd love to know your reasoning as to why it was or was not correctly decided.
Senator, I believe that is still binding case law in our.
It's not.
I'm sorry, Senator.
Lochner versus New York.
Lochner versus New York.
Yeah,
no, so because that is no longer binding case law, I would stand by whatever the precedent of the Third Circuit and the Supreme Court is, and that is the appropriate standards and law to apply in any cases that come before me.
Yeah, that's why I chose this one, because it's dead precedent. It's not around anymore.
Correct.
If you remember, this is the case where the Supreme Court invalidated some minimum wage, maximum hour laws passed by the state of New York.
Yes, Senator.
Affecting bakery employees. You still feel you can't opine on that, even though it's dead?
Senator, I think that it would be inappropriate for me to opine on it in the sense that what is binding and appropriate for me to apply would be the binding precedent of the Third Circuit and the Supreme Court at this point.
Gotcha. It's unusual, and that's why I choose that case on occasion, is because it is dead letter. But so it's disappointing that you won't get into it. I hope you'll reconsider when I submit questions for the record. Ms. Garnett, let's go to you next, if possible. On July 10th, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, which is the office where you now work as special counsel, announced that it was bringing charges against Dr. Gall Luft, who claims that in 2019 he gave incriminating information about Hunter Biden to the Department of Justice. About this indictment, his indictment, Dr. Luft said, quote, "I volunteered to inform the U.S. government about a potential security breach and about compromising information about a man vying to be the next president, and I'm now being hunted by the very same people who I informed," close quote. Are those charges against Dr. Luft, are they retribution for his willingness to speak out about Biden family corruption?
No, Senator. Those charges were actually returned in the fall of last year. The indictment was returned in the fall of last year. Mr. Luft was arrested in, I believe, Cyprus, and he was bailed pending extradition, and he fled from his bail.
Would you agree that they could be perceived as retribution for blowing the whistle on Hunter Biden?
I suppose someone could make that accusation, Senator, but I don't believe it's accurate.
Do you think at least the timing of those charges, I mean, wasn't it on July 10th that the U.S. Attorney's Office announced that it was bringing those charges?
Actually, Senator, the charges were returned last fall. The indictment in the United States, I believe, was unsealed on July 10th. I had no involvement with that decision. The indictment was unsealed in the United States at that time because it was determined, if, as I understand it, that Mr. Luft had fled from his bail in Cyprus and was not likely to be rearrested.
They were returned then. When were the statements made to the government? The underlying statements, were they made in 2019?
I had no involvement with that, Senator, so I don't know the details.
Okay. Given the concerns you've expressed about whistleblowers in the past, aren't you concerned about this whistleblower and about the appearance or the perception that he might have been the victim of retribution here?
I understand that some folks have expressed that perception. I can tell you from my experience in the case last year that that is not accurate.
Okay. Ms. Wang, I'd like to ask you a couple questions, if that's all right. When you were a student at Cornell, you made a statement to the effect that, quote, one of the things I've run into in America is that people pay lip service to liberal causes, but still have deeply rooted prejudices. Is it fair to say that this is what you perceive about leftist hypocrisy, or what is it?
Senator,
or poser leftists, or is it?
Senator, those statements were made during my time at Cornell as an undergraduate regarding anti-Asian bias incidents, hate crimes. And so it was efforts to get the administration to have an open dialogue and to acknowledge that there was violence against a particular group of students on campus.
Okay. Would you agree then that the consideration of race in college admissions, an issue that's recently been addressed by the Supreme Court of the United States, might be one of the causes that one could refer to that's on its face liberal, and yet it's deeply rooted in prejudice?
Senator, my personal views are irrelevant to my current standing before you, because as a judge, I would be a neutral arbiter, faithfully applying precedent and the text of the statute.
Okay. I'm out of time. It appears to me that sometimes the canons are being invoked a little bit excessively. We can talk about things, we can reason with things without weighing in on how you might rule.
Ngày ấy bên bờ sông La, anh nghe câu hò ví rằng để một đời anh đi xa, để ngàn lần anh nhớ mãi. Ngày ấy con đò đưa tiền một người lữ khách qua sông. Người ơi sao mà sâu nặng, câu thương câu đời câu chờ. Nay anh trở về bên dòng sông La, con đò vẫn nguyên dòng sông còn đó. Câu hò quê mình mộc mạc mà thương, ngày xưa anh mang đi khắp nẻo đường. Câu hò vì rằng cho anh đầy mơ ước. Nay anh trở về bên dòng sông La, con đò vẫn nguyên dòng sông còn đó. Câu hò quê mình mộc mạc mà thương, Ngày ấy bên bờ sông La, anh nghe câu hò ví dặm, để một đời anh đi xa, để ngàn lần anh nhớ mãi. Ngày ấy con đò đưa tiền một người lữ khách qua sông. Người ơi sao mà sâu nặng, câu thương câu đợi câu chờ. Nay anh trở về bên dòng sông La, con đò vẫn nguyên dòng sông còn đó. Câu hò quê mình mộc mạc na thương, ngày xưa anh mang đi khắp nẻo đường. Câu hò ví dặm cho anh đầy mơ ước. Nay anh trở về bên dòng sông La, con đò vẫn nguyên dòng sông còn đó. Câu hò quê mình mộc mạc mà thương, ngày xưa anh mang đi khắp nẻo đường. Câu hò ví dặm anh thương trọn. Cay